All right, everybody, it's time for the second edition of the Shaw Sports College Football Power Rankings. And here's how it works. We're going to look at each Power 4 conference and we're going to rank the top three teams from each conference, in my opinion. Then we're going to pick one player from each conference that's been standing out to me. So, with that being said, let's dive into it. Now, getting right into it, we're going to look at the Big Ten Conference. And the number one team in the Big Ten, no controversy with this one, is the Ohio State Buckeyes. And when you look at this team, in my opinion, they're looking like they're on the verge of becoming that next dynasty. They just won the national championship in 2024. And so far, this 2025 season, they've picked up the level of play, and they look absolutely dominant. It starts with their defense. It starts with their defensive line. It starts with at the backers with Arvell Reese, Caden Curry, Caleb Downs. This defense is playing absolutely phenomenal, and I don't see anybody being able to put up a lot of points on them. And then when you look at the offensive side of the ball, Sands the perfect fit for this offense. He's making big time throws when big time throws are needed. And then you look at the outside, Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, this wide receiver duo. I talked about Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane being the number one duo in the Big Ten, and I might be eating my words. I think Mekhi Lemon is right there with Jeremiah Smith at the moment in terms of level of play, but I think as a duo, you got to kind of give it to Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith. They've been unbelievable and getting better and better each week. And this Ohio State team, I don't need to say more, dominated Minnesota this past weekend, went on the road into a Washington Husky Stadium, which is a very hostile place to play, a dominant performance there, and then they opened up the season dominating Texas. This defense is just yeah, I mean, I can go on and on and on about this team, but Ohio State's my number one team in the Big Ten. Now, moving on to my number two team in the Big Ten, and that's the Oregon Ducks. Dan Lanning, probably my favorite coach in college football. He is just doing it right, and his team is taking after his identity. Make no mistakes about it. That's why they're able to go in a whiteout against Penn State on the road and win a close one. And it's because of their leader. It's because of Dan Lanning. And then when you look at the defense, guys like Bear Alexander up front. Their defensive line's playing great. They're really locked in on stopping the run, and Dante Moore at the quarterback position. He's as cool as it gets. He's got ice in his veins. Proved that on the road in his first big time start in a hostile environment. And now I know people are going to get on here and talk about, well, maybe Penn State just sucks. Let me tell you what happened with Penn State, and this is the absolute truth. Penn State, you go out and you lose a close one to Oregon. Tough team at home. That's a devastating loss. You come out during the week of practice feeling sorry for yourself, and then you go on the road in a road environment, in a weird environment, I should say, against UCLA. I played at UCLA when I was with USC. It's good when USC plays UCLA, but I can tell you when other teams play against UCLA, there's barely anybody in the stands. So, shitty week of practice, go in, come out flat in a weird environment, and you let UCLA stick around, you let UCLA get the lead, and that's how you get beat. But Penn State is a good team, make no mistakes about it. So Oregon going on the road, getting that win, and then with Dante Moore playing the way he's playing, this defense is playing how they're playing, and Dan Lanning leading the charge, the Oregon Ducks are sitting at number two. And then number three, Indiana. This shapes up perfectly. I'm actually going to mention a fourth team because Indiana plays Oregon this weekend, and it's going to be a fun one. And Signetti, this guy, Google him, I guess you could say, because he's really doing something up there in Bloomington, and you got to give all the props to him. And then Mendoza, their quarterback, I played against him when he was at Cal. Big, tall guy, can see the field really well, processes nicely. He's got good arm talent, and he's doing his thing. The defense is playing great. They beat down Illinois, who was a good team, and that really just put them on the spot. So I got Indiana at number three. Now, with Oregon playing Indiana, I do want to mention a fourth team here, and I'm going to go with the Michigan Wolverines. And I do think USC is a really bad matchup when it comes to, because they play USC this upcoming weekend, and I think that's a really bad matchup, and I think my Trojans are going to get it done. But sitting at right now, the Michigan Wolverines at number four. I like how they're running the ball. I like how their defense is coming together and playing, and Underwood just continues to develop every single week. So I'm going with the Michigan Wolverines at number four, and I'm only doing that because Oregon and Indiana are playing this weekend. So we'll see how that shapes up. Now that wraps up my top 4 teams from the Big Ten. Now, moving on to my standout player from the Big Ten. And he was my standout player a couple weeks ago, but I got to give it to him again. And that's Ohio State linebacker Arvell Reese, because he is doing it all for the Buckeyes. They're putting him on the edge. He's rushing the passer. He's at the mic position, just knocking guys down. He's spying the quarterback. I mean, go watch his game against Washington. Just watch his highlights. That Washington quarterback can really move around, really scramble, shifty guy. But once he got outside the pocket, Reese was like one of those GPS tracking, heat-seeking missiles on the hunt and just knocking them down. Didn't miss a tackle. I mean, this dude plays with relentless effort. He's as talented as it gets. And he kind of reminds me, I just watched the Jacksonville Jaguars game last night against the Kansas City Chiefs, and he reminds me a lot of that Devin Lloyd guy. I played against Devin Lloyd when he was at Utah, and they're both freaks. They're both monsters. And I think if Arvell Reese keeps going the way he's going to be a top 15 pick and making big-time plays just like Devin Lloyd's doing right now for the Jags. So Arvell Reese is my number 1 player in the Big Ten.
Fade throw. All right, Denzel's in the slot. Williams is looking that way. Now he's going to take off. And he's not going to get anything out of that.
Now, I just want to say, these are all the teams and all the players standing out to me. And I know if you're a big-time college football fan, you're feeling some sort of way with what I'm saying. So I don't care if you agree or disagree. Go down in the comment section below and let me know what teams are standing out to you. Let me know what players are standing out to you. And let's start a conversation and let's talk about it. So with that being said, we're moving on to the SEC Conference. And my number 1 team in the Southeastern Conference is none other than the Alabama Crimson Tide. Roll Tide, roll, baby. And I know I'm going to get some controversy on this one, but here's why I have them at number 1. And first off, you got to look at their last 2 wins. First, they take care of Vandy, which really made me happy because I was getting tired of Vanderbilt. I was getting tired of the Diego Pavia talk. They're treating him like he was primetime Johnny Manziel or Tom Brady, and I was just sick of it. So I appreciated Alabama taking care of that and getting their revenge. Then the next game, and I think this is the most impressive win that any team's had this year, and that's Alabama going on the road to the Hedges and knocking off the Georgia Bulldogs. And keep in mind, Georgia won 33 straight games at home, and Alabama goes in there and plays absolutely fantastic and gets a big-time W. So those 2 wins. Then when you look at their head coach, Kalen DeBoer, let's not forget everybody wanted this guy fired after they lost to Florida State. I mean, the crazy lady went on TV and said, if I won the lottery, I would pay for them to fire Kalen DeBoer and pay for them to fire the Alabama athletic director. And since then, and I came on here and I talked about it a couple weeks ago. When they lost to that game to Florida State, I said this team's going to go one or two ways. They're going to pack it in, feel sorry for themselves, and lose 4 or 5 games. Or they're going to cut it loose, just let everything go, play with relentless passion, relentless effort, and they're going to go out and compete for an SEC title. And it's very obvious what decision they made because they have been playing like their backs are on the wall. They've been playing like they're on fire. Coach DeBoer's he's had that passion to him. He's got that confidence back to him. And you can see it on the sideline. He's got that confidence. He's got that swagger. And I'm really liking what he's doing. And then next, you got to love their quarterback, Ty Simpson. He's developed into that alpha. He's playing great on the field, and he's that leader off the field. So Alabama Crimson Tide, my number 1 team in the SEC. Now, moving on to my number 2 team in the SEC. This is also going to get some controversy, but I'm going with the Texas A&M Aggies, and here's why. First, my number 3 team's Ole Miss, so I'm going Texas A&M over Ole Miss, and I have Texas A&M at that top spot because I love their win on the road against Notre Dame. That's first off. But when you look at their last 2 games, let's keep this in mind. Auburn's been playing teams very tight this year, and Texas A&M, when you look at them in the past, and here's what I've been saying with some of my friends, and here's what some of my friends have been saying to me. It's hard to jump on the ship of Texas A&M because they go out in the years past and they'll beat an Alabama, and then the next week they'll go lay an egg. So it's really hard to jump on the ship because you don't know what you're going to get. But these last two games, they take care of Auburn. They play great defense. They run the football. Then Mississippi State, who just took Tennessee a couple weeks ago into overtime, defense steps up, plays phenomenal, and they rush for almost 300 yards on offense. So when you look at those last 2 games, it really shows me that I can jump on this ship, that this Texas A&M team is different and they're for real. So I got them as the number 2 team in the SEC. And then number 3, I already said it, the Ole Miss Rebels. I like their win over LSU, but that's about it. And I like Chambliss. I think Chambliss, their quarterback, is doing a phenomenal job. Sorry if I'm saying his name wrong. And I got to shout out Lane Kiffin because I used to not be a Lane Kiffin guy. Growing up, I didn't really like him, and then recently, I didn't really like him. But seeing videos and seeing how he's acting on this sideline, you can see a clear shift in his character and really character development and growth. And that's really why I like Lane Kiffin right now, because you can tell he's all about his guys, he's all about his business, and he's all about his team. And I don't know if he was like that in the past. And you can see that his team is really playing hard for him. And like I said, that was a big time win over LSU. But LSU's offense has just been horrible. Nussmeier's been underperforming. So I love Ole Miss. I do love what Lane Kiffin's doing there, and they are in the top three, so there shouldn't be too much stuff about it. But I got those as my three in the SEC. And my number one player, my standout player so far in the SEC, I've already said his name, and that's quarterback Ty Simpson. I mean, I just love what this guy's doing. He's making things happen. He's running the offense efficiently. But like I said, why he's my number one guy so far is all because of how he's behaving, how he's acting. I mean, this guy has developed into a leader that Alabama desperately needed. I mean, he's talking to his kickoff team before they take the field to kick the ball off. He's talking to his defense. He's talking to his offensive guys. And besides that, he's making things happen with his legs when things break down. He's on timing. He's on rhythm. And he's got a strong, talented arm. And he's just doing his thing. So Ty Simpson is my number one player in the SEC so far. Now, looking at the good old Atlantic Coast Conference, the ACC, and the number one team in the ACC, this was the easiest one yet, and that's the Miami Hurricanes. And I think it's either Miami or Ohio State for the top spot in the country right now. I think maybe Oregon, but I think those three teams are far ahead of the rest of the pack, and I'm just really loving what I'm seeing out of this Miami Hurricanes team. This is a physical, dominant team. When you got Corey Hetterman coming over from Minnesota and kind of manning that defense, this defense has totally flipped the script. I mean, their defense is getting after people, attacking. They dominated Florida State. I know that score was like 28-22, but they went into Tallahassee and really dominated them. And then when you look at Carson Beck on the offense side of the ball, I mean, this is a match made in heaven. And I said this multiple times already. He just looks very happy. He looks like he's developed into that best version of himself on the field and off the field. He looks like he's being that leader. And when you look at his weapons and Daniels and Malachi Tony, they're doing their thing. They're freaks. And I tell you what, Tony, he's one of the best freshmen I've seen in a long time. You know, I've seen some pretty good freshmen. Garrett Wilson, I played with Garrett at Ohio State. He's probably the best true freshman that I've seen. But Zachariah Branch was another really good true freshman that I've seen. But Malachi Tony, I mean, this dude is something else. And each week that goes by, he's just making more and more plays and becoming a bigger and bigger impact. And I'm really glad we get to watch him for the next couple years in college football. But yeah, this Miami Hurricanes team is just they've handled business all the way through. I don't see anything slowing them down. It's going to be them versus them in terms of making sure their culture stays tight, making sure they lock in on the little things. And if they do that, Miami Hurricanes are going to be right there at the end, and they're a legitimate national championship threat team. Now, moving on to the number two team, and this was tough. I'm not going to lie. And I am going to go with the Virginia Cavaliers at number two. And I just have loved what they've done over the last couple weeks. They dropped one early to North Carolina State, but since then they've picked it up. And then at home against Florida State, they get a huge W in double overtime. And when you look at teams that win big games, they go one or two ways. One, it's like an emotional dopamine dump, and they come out flat the next week, and that's really the highlight of their season. Or they use the big-time W as momentum. And that's what I think Virginia is doing. And they come out this past weekend against Louisville, another really good team in the ACC. And they do come out a little bit flat. They got to fight to get that game into overtime, but they find a way to get it done. And teams who can win close games, that's a good sign of culture, and that's just a good overall sign of a good football team, is that teams that can win in multiple ways. And I'm loving their quarterback. I'm loving what he's got going on. Mitchell Melton on the defensive side of the ball, ACC Defensive Player of the Week. We're actually going to interview him on the Shaw and Steele Show Thursday. So tune in to the Shaw and Steele Show. You'll be able to find it on Shaw Sports Media or on the Shaw and Steele YouTube channel. We're interviewing him, but the defense is stepping up. The offense is really coming together, and Virginia Cavaliers are showing that fight and showing that they're a legitimate threat in the ACC. And then my number 3 team in the ACC, and this is where it got kind of dicey, kind of iffy, and I'm going with the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. And I know people are going to be like, maybe Georgia Tech should be at number 2. They do have one of my favorite players in the college football right now, in Haynes King. He's putting his body on the line week in and week out, and I think he's a guy who deserves to be in the Heisman talks because he really does put Georgia Tech on his back. But when you look at Georgia Tech, there's not a quality win there. Clemson is just really falling off the face of the earth. Depending on how that shapes up, that could come back into play to be a quality win. And then they almost lose to Wake Forest. So I like Georgia Tech. I'm concerned about Georgia Tech. You know, they had a close one with Colorado as well, who's not doing well. So I'm going to put them at number 3. I'm a little biased because I do love Mitchell Melton in the Virginia Cavaliers, but I do like what they're doing. So those are my top 3. And now, my number 1 player in the ACC, I don't even really need to talk about it, and that's Carson Beck, for all the reasons I've already said. On the field, looks absolutely fantastic. He's running the offense perfectly off the field. He's leading the charge. He's leading that program. He's leading that culture. And he is just, like I said, he's turned into that best version of himself. And he keeps playing like this, he's going to be right there for the Heisman. So Carson Beck is my standout player from the ACC.
Fletcher flanking back. And it's a flea flicker. Beck launches downfield. Tony's out there. He's got a touchdown, Miami.
And that brings us to our last Power 4 conference, the Big 12 Conference. And my number 1 team in the Big 12, it's them and then everybody else in this conference, and that's the Texas Tech Red Raiders. That NIL money sure is paying off. They're going out there dominating teams. I love how they went up to Utah and dominated Utah. I like what this defense has got going on. A guy to highlight on that defense is Romello Height. I love how the offense is coming together. So it's Texas Tech at that 1 spot in the Big 12 by far, and this brings us to our second team. And this is a toss-up. You can really plug and play and make an argument for anybody, but I'm going with the Cincinnati Bearcats. I love their win against Iowa State. I thought Iowa State was a pretty good team, and they go out there and they rush for 200 yards in the first half. But the real reason I love the Cincinnati Bearcats is because of their strength coach, Nico Palazetti. Nico Palazetti was my strength coach at Ohio State, and I got to tell you what, this guy is as good as it gets. He's as good as a dude as it gets, and I know you can bet your money, if Nico Palazetti is a strength coach for a team, that team is going to be a tough, disciplined, just hard-nosed football team, and that's why I'm high on this Cincinnati team, because as long as he's there, that culture is going to be where it needs to, and I bet you Cincinnati gets better and better and better, and they might be able to make a playoff push if they win out, and watch out for the Cincinnati Bearcats. Now, at number 3, another toss-up. I was between Arizona State and BYU, but I'm going with Arizona State. And Sam Leavitt, the quarterback, I do like. He's not playing at that level that people thought he was going to be at, but he is playing good. But there's 2 guys on this Arizona State team I want to highlight. First off is Riley Brown, running back Riley Brown. I played with this kid when he was a true freshman at USC, and I swear to you, everybody on our team thought he was going to win the Heisman at some point because he was that good. Watching him run in training camp, I mean, he was electric that fall, but he had some hamstring issues, had some stuff off the field, and it didn't quite work out for him. So I'm loving that he's coming into his own at Arizona State and really hitting his stride. And Riley Brown is a guy that's really standing out to me from Arizona State. And this brings us to the second guy that's standing out and my number 1 player in the Big 12 so far, and that's wide receiver Jordan Tyson. He's got 39 catches for 483 yards and 7 touchdowns. He's really coming into that, developing into that alpha receiver in the conference. He's making big-time plays, and he's averaging like 13 yards a catch or whatever it may be. Just an explosive receiver, and watch out for him because he's a real deal guy, and he's going to be kind of a top draft pick at the receiver position when it comes. So Jordan Tyson is my Big 12 player, Big 12 standout player. So that wraps up the second edition of the Shaw Sports College Football Power Rankings from every Big Four conference. And then once again, I know you're feeling some sort of way, so go down in the comment section below. Let me know what teams I'm missing. Let me know what players I'm missing, and let's talk about it. And then while you're at it, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. I'm telling you, there's going to be so many good things coming down the line, and you're not going to want to miss it. And I appreciate you sticking this video out. I wasn't feeling my best, but we powered through. And once again, just thank you. And that wraps it up for me.